let's turn our attention to our next speaker. And she is the co-founder and CEO of Alice Roger. And she will speak about self-organization. She has experiences as an executive coach, communication trainer, and consultant for over 10 years. And so she is a real expert in leadership development, self-organization, and diversity. And the title of her talk is it leadership or can I eliminate it? Let's give a warm welcome to Lea. Hi.
Ach so, wo ist der Klicker? Hier. Hello. My name is Lea. I'm very excited to be here today. I'm the founder and CEO of Alice Roger. We are new work facilitators, which means we support companies to establish and implement new work mindset structures and soft skills. Basically, what we do is coaching, training, and organizational development. So I'm a coach myself, and before I founded Alice Roger, I had a totally different career. I studied economics, and while studying, I was working at a VC company, and I didn't know really what to do after finishing my studies. So the first job I took was as an assistant to the CEO. Turned out after 5 weeks I quit. Then I took the next job. The opportunity was just out there, so I took it. It was in controlling. That job I quit after 6 months. So I took the next job in controlling. And I took the job because I was expecting many opportunities for growth. They promised, well, it's a startup, it's fast growing, and there's going to be a high chance for your personal career development and also for, of course, the growth of salary. And I was thinking, well, that sounds promising. And so after working there for, I think, 3 months, the CFO that I was working with directly, he asked me, well, Lea, what do you think? Should we hire people that are fit for the job already, or should they develop themselves into the position? His background was in a corporate, and I did not know anything about corporate politics whatsoever. So I was very naive and just answered him, well, I think there should be a balance. And then 3 weeks later, it turned out that they hired a controller to start in 3 months from that day onwards. And I was just really shocked because the company was going through a very interesting phase in time. They just went through a merger, and all the systems had to be set up from scratch. So it would have been a very interesting challenge, really. And then we waited for that person to start. We didn't touch controlling structures whatsoever. And then the person started, and 2 weeks later, she quit. And for me, of course, I was thinking, well, maybe it's my turn now, but it wasn't. But what I'm heading at was what happened here. So what this company and also the management team was great at was management. Their background was in corporates. They came from this world where management is just key to success. They were managing the budget, they were managing KPIs, they were managing headcount, and the hiring managers were hiring the new people that were to join the team. And what we all know, they came from these systems where you have line systems, where you're working in functional organizations, where you're working in matrix organizations. And we all know the tools that are working well in these setups. And this is working well in the organizational environment for the industrial age, where we are dealing with a high level of complicatedness and a high level of efficiency, where we know that there's loyal customers, there's selective employers that can choose who they're going to be working with, and they are dealing with managed results. But this world doesn't exist anymore. It changed. So this is also what the management team back then kind of missed to adapt to. It's the high level of complexity that we're dealing with nowadays. It's the age of the internet. It's the time where we can have a YouTube video that we upload and a day later we have 1 million clicks. It's the time where one tweet can go viral and get us fired. And that is the age of network economy. You probably already heard about it. It's the age of a high level of complexity and high dynamics, which means that we're dealing with discontinuous change. We have to stay very closely connected to our customers, and we are dealing with disloyal customers and very short life cycles, and of course with very selective employees. It's no longer the time where the companies select the employees, but the other way around. The employees select the companies. And this is also why we have to pay attention to our employer brand and our EVP. It's the time where the companies are cannibalizing themselves to stay in the market. They constantly have to innovate their product and make themselves unneeded. And they have to react fast and stay ahead of the game. And one very important concept for this is ambidexterity. Maybe some of you have heard about it. Ambidexterity means that you are working in balance for efficiency and innovation, which means that when we're looking at all the processes that are just recurring, for example, sending out an invoice, we don't have to reinvent the wheel for sending out an invoice. All of these processes can be standardized and can be put into a very efficient way. On the other hand, we have innovation. And innovation needs or is fostered the best way if we have a lot of room for creativity and if we leave room for agility and high dynamics. Which means that a company who is mastering this, in German there's a very nice concept for this, which is called dynamic robust. Translating this to English is kind of weird to me a bit, dynamically robust or dynamic robust. Anyways, one way of how to implement ambidexterity in a nice way that I am also a big fan of is self-organization. And this is already our answer, or my answer, for how do we get to this ambidexterity. And why is that? This is because self-organization is providing a complex structure for a complex problem. The environment is complex, and we cannot deal with complexity by making things even more complicated, but we also need to make up a complex structure to deal with this complexity. And this has not been a new innovation or just invented lately, but it actually goes back to a very long time ago. As you can tell, there are some roots that go back to 1910. One model that might be known a bit more is sociocracy, and one model that you have probably heard of is called Holacracy. And I don't know if you have heard about Holacracy, but it is definitely a model where leadership is key. So we are not getting rid of management completely. There's still going to be things that need to be managed, but key is leadership. And we all start with ourselves, which is self-leadership. Because the way this is organized is that we work in sub-circles and in bigger circles. All the circles are connected, but in each circle, the teams are all on the same level, and you don't work with job positions anymore, but with roles. And if there's one role to fill in, this could also be filled in by person 1, and then it changes and person 2 just takes over the role. So it's not as strict anymore, but it leaves a lot of room for a high dynamic and fast movements. A different model, as you just saw that there's a couple, is called Collegial Leadership. And it's, what do you say, it's alike, but just in a different way. So there's different areas for which areas to operate in. Let's say online marketing is one area, and in this area the team organizes themselves. And then one key is that also in Holacracy, the problems get solved where they actually come up. So for instance, if there's a problem in customer support, the team can solve it directly and knows the structures and the way how to deal with the problem. And I'm not going to go into detail about the model itself because it was just totally explode this framework for today. But it was important to me to show you that there's different models and it's not just Holacracy as many of you might know it. So at Alles Roger, we sat down and we were thinking, how can we make this new work just a bit more tangible? And we realized that there's different areas that need to be covered while thinking about new work. And of course, there's the structures within the companies that need to be taken care of. Then there's the competencies, and there's the methods. And all of the things are to be taken care of on different levels, which is the individual level, the team level, and the organizational level. And there's different people who design the organization itself, which we are thinking it's the leaders, it's HR, and it's the, the people who take care of the company, the management board. Well, in German it's Geschäftsführung, which is not like the same as management. Anyways, the people that own the company. Anyways, why does this not contain the employees itself? And that is exactly the right question to ask. It is because we think that everyone becomes a leader, which makes it obvious why there is no employees anymore, but only leaders. And what's also interesting then is the job that HR is going to take over. And this is the question, is HR still necessary if everything is leadership? Aren't all the leaders are going to take over the leadership area? I think as we know it from today, leaders usually don't take the 80% and 20% rule as of 80% leadership, 20% operational, but it's more or less the other way around. And I think just starting from here, it's a nice idea to be thinking that all of this could change from tomorrow onwards, but it's not going to happen. So we need experts to take on this role. And to me, HR is a great starting point for that. So HR is definitely taking care of the organizational design, which means, so going into detail here, what is part of the organizational design? It's definitely the vision. Many companies today still already have the vision, but what do they actually do with that? And it's HR's job to implement it and make it a daily business, which on top of the values and the constitution itself gives all of the employees, which we now call leaders, a guideline for what behavior is wanted and what behavior is not wanted, what decisions are on the company's path and which are not on the company's path. And HR also takes care of designing the roles, making sure they're there, making sure they're communicated in a transparent way, and also processes as we know them, like strategies and goals. Some of you might have already heard of the concept of the OKRs. I think it's a nice way of implementing a new structure which is not top-down anymore, but bottom-up, can be adjusted as you need it. But it, in the end, means that the whole team is taking care of developing the strategy, of developing goals. And strategy also in this context means that you do not plan ahead, like years ahead, which might sound a bit difficult to implement for a very big companies that have to report to whoever they have to report. But in the world as we know it, it's very hard to plan ahead for so long. So it's easier to plan ahead for a time frame of, let's say, 3 months, where you know this is realistic or this is not. It's a time frame that you can oversee in an easier way. So on top of that, there's methods and techniques that HR is the owner for, which means that there's need for facilitation, for moderation, for mediation, for coaching, for training. And these are the methods and the tools, really, that HR knows how to master them and knows how to implement them into the team. They can go into the teams and do a workshop, do a mediation, and they can also teach others within the teams so they help them to help themselves. So in the end, the core competency is not solely on HR anymore, but outrolled into the entire organization. One other thing that I put here, just checking the time, I think I'm talking very fast. One other thing I put here was is effectuation. Effectuation is a principle or a methodology for taking decisions that are entrepreneurial decisions, I would say. It enables you to take decisions in an unknown or unpredictable future context. So you know what to do anyways and have security for your decisions, although you don't know the context completely yet. And it's a technique, and this can also be taught and implemented into the organization. So the employees/leaders have security about the decisions they're taking on a daily basis. And then, I'm so fast. I'm getting to my last slide already. One other thing that HR is taking care of is being the owner of competencies. And those competencies are one thing, for instance, the administrational work. Someone has to do the payroll, someone has to take care of the contracts. These things need to be taken care of. Another thing, I put here recruiting as a representative of other competencies that HR is going to stay the master of. And this means that there's certain things that someone who's dealing with daily business on a daily level, of course, they're not going to have the in-depth knowledge about certain things, such as recruiting, for instance. They don't know about unconscious bias, for instance, or other dynamics that influence you while taking decisions for who to hire within your team, or how to screen CVs, or how to set up a completely new and different innovative process for recruiting, if you don't have Watson, for instance. Anyway, so HR is going to be the one to give trainings and to make sure that these standards are still implemented into the organization. And there's other things as psychological dynamics that they also know where they evolve and how they are going to develop, and this knowledge is also going to be transferred into the organization. And of course, they're the keeper of the processes, and they're able to keep the quality standard high. So, while everything becomes leadership, we need less management, which means we won't get completely rid of management itself. There's still going to be project management, for instance, but there's not going to be managers anymore who manage the results and the people itself, and everything is going to turn into leadership. And if you have a self-organized organization, this is already the step towards leadership for all of it. And now my question to you, what questions do you have? Yes. Yeah.
Okay, this will help.
Right.
So I hear you talk about HR a lot, so I get the idea that this is more something for larger companies. Like I work in a company that's like, I don't know, 13 people or something. We don't really have many different departments. And I was just wondering how this translates to companies of different sizes.
Mm-hmm. You mean the self-organization?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So self-organization itself can be implemented for a wide variety of sizes of companies. There's companies with 3 or 5 employees who are already doing it, and there's others with 10,000 employees who also implemented it. So in a company of 13 people, that would just scale down in a different way. So you might not need as many circles, because you just want to set up the circles that are relevant. But especially for a size like that, it's important to set up a constitution, values, define the vision so everyone knows it, and set up the basic structures which are going to enable everyone in the team to know what's okay to do and what's not okay to do. Yeah? Great. What else?
Hi, my name is Tobias. Thanks for your presentation. One question about this effectuation. You mentioned it. To me, it sounds like it's okay to make a failure. Is that what's behind this, or what's the difference of this concept? Because you mentioned like effectuation means you make a decision, you don't know what happens. So this is, I think, happening a lot. But now it's about the consequences. So I think it's like about this fail early, fail often, or what is the idea?
It goes into that direction. So if we look at the classical management setup, you are defining a goal that's way ahead in the future. You're defining the steps, but there's no room for unknown situations that are going to affect your goal setting. And with effectuation, you don't look so much at the where do I want to get at, but you look at the what do I already have, who's in my network, who can support me, what's my minimum loss that I can take. For instance, if you want to, if you're looking for a new job and you don't know, am I ever going to find a new job, the smallest amount that you could probably invest into finding a new job would be setting aside 1 hour each week to invest into finding a new job. Whereas many times people are thinking, oh, I have to give up my job completely by now, otherwise I'm not going to be able to find a new job. So the methodology behind planning is a different one, because you don't plan so much, but you just take what's there and take it from there. It's a methodology, though, that has been investigated by scientists, which makes entrepreneurs succeed in the end.
Okay, thank you. And
follow-up
question?
Yes.
Can we get a slide somewhere?
Sure. I don't know if they're going to be provided in any way, but my colleague is sitting right behind you. You can just give her your card.
Okay.
I'll send it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What else? Yes.
I was wondering for the self-organization. I know a lot of people who work within medium-sized, large-scale companies who actually don't want that. They want a manager to decide. They want a manager to tell them what to do. Mm-hmm. What do you tell those companies? Because I know a lot of leaders who actually are looking for people with self-organization driven. Mm-hmm. And then they say, but we don't have them.
Yeah.
And coaching is an approach, but it didn't really help.
Yeah. I think one way for how to go about this is that if I have been working in the old system all my life, I don't know what I am. So it's like if I have one job now and I don't know the next one, this one is safe. Even if I don't like it, I know what I have. And this one is just unknown to me. And one way for dealing with this problem, if it's a problem, it's another thing, but is to make it more transparent what a new system would look like or could potentially look like. And then on the other hand, it's not necessary that even in self-organization, not everyone has to take leadership decisions on a daily basis. There are some roles that imply that and others where you do not have to do this. So you don't have to take this whole thing at once, but also this is a learning process where you go step by step towards that. Was that answering your question?
It implicates that it's for people who are already in the workforce for many years. But I made the experience that even people who are just coming out of school, out of university, they have that need for leadership as well. Because that's what we're used to for many years, especially in Germany. We're more used to have rules and stick to the rules. And if you don't stick to the rules, you're bad. So it's part of the culture in Germany too.
It is part of the culture. You learn that there's a good and a bad. It's a learning path that you have to take, and it's the same when you learn. You can learn self-leadership itself as well. Not everyone knows how to manage their time well, how to manage emotions, how to prioritize, and all of this belongs to a learning curve. And even if you have, it depends on who you want to have in your company in the end. If you hire someone who's already able who is already a self-leader in the end, or if you need someone to grow that person into the position. What I said in the beginning. Do we want to hire someone who is fit to do the job or who can develop into that? And I think everyone can develop into it. What else? Who else has a question? We have time for one more question.
So the thing is, in our company, we also have a very flat organization, and basically everybody can talk to everybody. And what I have noticed, it's kind of similar to what she said. Some people really want leadership or wouldn't be very good at leadership. And I'm actually, I would consider myself one of the leaders, and I try to see these things, and basically when I see a team where there's somebody who can be a leader, I try to put them in the position and basically create an environment where everyone can flourish, where the people who want leadership get it, and the people who are good at leading can give leadership. And I was just wondering what your take on this is, if you think this is, how this would be done in your system as well, or if you have any other ideas.
Mm-hmm. So one thing that I can relate to a lot is that I have also made the experience that there are some people that do not have a lot of work experience, for instance, and they need leadership with regard to knowledge. They do not, for instance, if you start in marketing and you have never done marketing, you wouldn't know how to set up a strategy, which direction to go into, and you would need a mentor, definitely, to guide you into the position and that you can learn from. On the other hand, when you just consider things such as time management or taking a grounded decision, that is something that you can learn easily, whereas I think there's a need to separate this from the knowledge part. And of course it goes hand in hand, and for the not knowledge part, you need to make sure that you set up a framework where everyone feels secure to take maybe even stupid decisions that if I do take a decision now, no one's going to cut my head off, but I can still survive and do the next move. So it goes hand in hand, but it's two different things. You still have a question?
So if I understand correctly, it's basically you feel like those people who want to be led should still make the extra effort and become leaders themselves too.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
So thanks, Lea.
Yeah, thank you.
Make some noise for Lea. Thank you.